Okay, so something really interesting is brewing for XRP this October. We're looking at a collision course between two massive opposing forces. On one side, you've got a decade's worth of history that's screaming, be careful. And on the other, well, let's just say the smart money is making some moves that suggest history is about to get a major rewrite. And this, right here, is the central conflict. History tells us that, plain and simple, October is usually a bad month for XRP. But then you look at the current price chart, and it's forming a pattern that practically screams major breakout ahead. So where do you place your bets? On the past or on the present? Let's dig into both sides of the argument. All right, first up, let's talk about the bull case. And really, it all boils down to one simple rule: follow the money. Because while a lot of smaller traders were getting a little bit nervous, the big institutional players, the whales, they started making some very, very confident moves. And just look at the timing of this. In September alone, a whopping $210 million poured into XRP from these institutions. And this wasn't during some big price surge either. This happened while the market was shaky. You see, that's not a panic move. That's a calculated strategy. So the question is, what are they doing with all this XRP? Are they just trading it back and forth? Nope. The data points to something way more significant. Get this, an incredible 1.2 times billion dollars worth of XRP was recently pulled off of exchanges and moved into private cold storage wallets. This is a massive signal. You just don't do that if you're planning to sell anytime soon. You do that when you're settling in for the long haul, which, by the way, takes that supply off the market and reduces the pressure to sell. And this quote from Ricardo Santos over at Mansa just nails it. While a lot of people were selling out of fear, the big institutions saw a discount. They saw a golden opportunity to build up their positions on the cheap. The smart money was zigging while almost everyone else was zagging. Okay, so we've got the big players making these really bullish moves. But what about that pesky historical data? Well, the argument here is pretty straightforward. Comparing this October to the ones in the past is like comparing apples to oranges. The entire landscape for XRP has fundamentally changed. I mean, the contrast couldn't be more stark. In past Octobers, XRP was completely bogged down by massive regulatory uncertainty from that SEC lawsuit, and there was basically zero infrastructure for big money to even get involved. But now, that legal battle is essentially resolved, giving a ton of clarity, and we have multiple applications for XRP ETFs just waiting in the wings. It's a whole new ballgame. And these game changers just didn't exist before. You've got legal clarity, which is huge. You have real-world assets actually being tokenized on the XRP ledger. And then there's the big one, the potential for exchange-traded funds, or ETFs, which could open the floodgates for a massive wave of mainstream investment. But, we have to look at the other side of the coin. You just can't ignore a decade of hard data. The bear case is simple, it's powerful, and it's all based on one nagging question. What if this time isn't different? What if history just does what it always does? And here is the number that has the bears feeling pretty confident, negative 4.5%. Over the last 10 years, that has been XRP's average loss in the month of October. That makes it the second worst performing month of the entire year. That is a powerful historical trend, and you got to admit, it's a tough one to bet against. So, how do we possibly square these two opposing views? Well, we look at the chart. Right now, XRP's price is in what's called a descending wedge. The easiest way to think about this is like a coiled spring. The price gets squeezed tighter and tighter, building up all this potential energy for a really explosive move. And usually, that move is up. And that brings us to the battleground. Let's forget all the noise and the predictions for just a second. The chart itself gives us very clear, very specific price levels that are going to tell us who's winning this fight for October, the bulls or the bears. So here are the two scenarios you need to watch. For the bulls to really take charge, XRP needs to break and hold above that $3.02 resistance level. If it can do that, the next logical target is a rally up towards 361. On the flip side, for the bears to prove that history is repeating itself, the price needs to fall below 275 support. A break there would signal a potential slide down towards 264. So there you have it. You got the smart money betting that the future is going to be very different from the past. And on the other side, you have a decade of data suggesting a tough month is on the way. The battle lines are drawn. In this absolute showdown for October, who do you think is going to win?